Bohr.
Niels Bohr. This is probably, yeah, I probably did. This is probably about the 1920s. I actually don't have an accurate date for Niels Bohr on my PowerPoint, and so I don't necessarily remember it. But it wasn't very long after Rutherford. Now, I call this unit the old dead guy unit because most of the guys were old dead. However, he died young. Niels Bohr changed England's public policy. In his early 20s, he made his discovery, his contribution to our knowledge of the atom. And he did several other things too. He was a rising star of science at his time. He was the future of science. But about this time period in history was World War I.
Shucks.
And Niels Bohr was British, and Britain was in World War I. And Niels Bohr believed in his country and believed that when your country goes to war, you step up, you sign up, and you go. And he did.
I died.
Well, at the time, scientists had no special category. There's no use for scientists, so they put him in the front lines. And he died. He was killed on the war. And Britain, they really thought, you know, boy, what a waste. Here's this guy who was a rising star of science. Here's this guy who was in his 20s. He'd had major contribution to our understanding of how the world works. What could he have offered us if he had only lived? So my understanding is since then they have changed the policies. And now, if you're a scientist, they'll still take you. If you sign up for the military, they'll still take you. But they don't put you in the front lines anymore. Yeah, that way, if you have the ability to do something, now it may be just if you're a really good scientist, a proven scientist. But if you are, then they're not going to put you in the front lines anymore because you may be too big of a risk. You may be somebody that may do more in the future. Yes?
This is outside, but who do they put in the front line?
Teachers. I had a friend who used to work here a long time ago, and he went to Vietnam, and he taught here first, and then he went to war, and then he came back, and he says that in the military there's no equivalent job for teachers, so they just turn them into grunts and put them in the front line. That's what this friend of mine who used to work here said. So, teachers, people who work in restaurants, you know, ordinary people like you and me. We go to the front lines. Unless you become somebody who's not an ordinary person. Only if you're losing. Alright. If you're winning the war, you're doing fine. Alright, Niels Bohr. What Niels Bohr did is he figured out that the atom has these things called energy levels. And the electrons have to be in particular places called energy levels. And he designed a model of the atom so popular, so ingrained in our understanding of how the world works, that we still use his model today when we're talking about the atom, even though it's outdated. You see Bohr's model of the atom in places like Jimmy Neutron, Big Bang Theory. You see Bohr's model of the atom in all of these. Whenever a person in advertising or in television wants to communicate the idea of high tech or the atom to its audience, they use a Bohr model. The Bohr model is outdated. The Bohr model is outdated, but it's easy to draw, and it's easy to use as a way to explain things. The most accurate model is far more difficult to explain, and it's far more difficult to draw, so we don't see it as much. Let me show you the Bohr model. There are two versions of the Bohr model. They're just kind of different angles of the same thing. The first version of the Bohr model, actually I don't need to draw. version of the Bohr model that you typically see on in television. It's places like the Big Bang Theory, places like Jimmy Neutron, television. You see this version. These are circles, not ovals.
What?
They're circles, not ovals.
Does that matter?
They're at an angle. This picture and this picture represent the same thing. This one doesn't show the circles really being different sizes.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And so here, this is, this is sometimes called the planetary model of the atom.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Does it make sense? Do you see how these two pictures kind of represent the same thing?
Yeah.
This is the one that's more artistically interesting. So this one gets on TV a lot. This is the one that teachers use a lot. I'll use this one. Even though it's outdated, I'll use this one quite a bit. Because this is chalkboard friendly. It's really easy to draw on a chalkboard. You can use it to explain to students things like valence electrons or more complicated chemistry ideas. All right? So this is his contribution to the atom. This is what he thought the atom looked like. And we have a little video on him, too. Nothing too exciting. Oh, I did want to show you a memory trick. So here's the Bohr model of the atom. He has a positive nucleus. All right. So I have a little positive nucleus. Here's electrons. Here's some electrons.
It's a pig.
It's the Bohr model.
Oh, like a boar. Oh, like a wild boar. I get it.